So Intel's Arc GPUs are really coming, and I actually love that the angle they're going for here is price to performance. Because honestly, the reputation already from early testing with drivers and software and all of that, and the fact that people just, you already have an AMD GPU or an Nvidia GPU, Intel needs to break into this space aggressively. And so I like that the angle they're going for here is price to performance. And they're announcing their Arc A770 and Arc A750 here, touting its performance per dollar advantage versus the RTX 3060. And this is based on an average price of $418 for the RTX 3060 based on an average selling price calculated on September 22nd at newegg.com. Now, one thing I will bring up, because part of what I like to do on this channel is cut through some marketing numbers. That is an average sale price for the RTX 3060. To be clear, you can find RTX 3060 cards available for significantly less than that. For example, here at several retailers, you can find one for $369.48. And that's a 2-fan model, not one of the little single-fan models, although there is a single-fan model here available for $369.99. Anyway, so the point is that yes, this number does, you can use an average sale figure here. This is clearly inflating it compared to the cheapest RTX 3060 cards. And then also, they're not comparing against similar AMD cards of similar performance. If we looked at the RX 6600 XT, which is around $310 at the cheapest model, and then going up to $330, but then we also have the 6650 XT, which again is, at least in rasterized performance, usually actually slightly beats a 3060. We're now at around, again, $300 for the cheapest models, and then $320, $330 as we bump up from there. So I love that they're going for price to performance here, but to get these large percentages, and this also shows up in some of their performance graphs, keep in mind how they're doing that. Now, the pricing here for the A770 is $329 and $289 on the A750, and these are launching on the 12th of October, which is the same day as the RTX 4090 launches, although these are clearly targeting completely different demographics. Now, they are giving a whole bunch of detailed performance claims here, and it's important to keep an eye on what they're testing. So let me, get myself out of the way here. The point is, when we're looking at this, you know what, can I zoom in on this better if I just open this in a new screen? Let's do that. All right, so there's a ton of games here. Now, what they're doing here is setting the RTX 3060's performance as a 100% baseline. And that's important to look at, because sometimes I see comparison charts like this that do this, and some of the comments in the video are like, that's completely unrealistic. The RTX 3060 would not have the same performance in all of these games. That's because they're not, this is not FPS, this is performance as a percentage. So they're setting the RTX 3060 as a baseline, and this is now the A750, not the A770, it's the A750, which is the $289 one, showing its relative performance against the RTX 3060. Now notice they do include DX12 optimized games, DX12 games that they say they've optimized, as well as DX12 just in general, and then Vulkan and DX11. And the main thing to watch out for with these Intel GPUs is in the older APIs like DX11 and further back, the drivers just aren't as optimized, and you can see a big loss there. Now, if you're playing newer games that do feature DX12 or Vulkan, it is looking like the A750 is on average offering better performance than the RTX 3060 at a lower price. Now, when they then adjust this to the price to performance details, which they're going for here, then that's where we're getting these larger bar graphs. This is adjusted as price to performance, so they're scaling it by the pricing difference, which is why we're now seeing they're claiming that for the same price, they've set their MSRP. So in those games that perform worse than an RTX 3060, the A750 will still give you the same performance per dollar as the RTX 3060. And then in all the other games, you're getting significantly better performance per dollar, or so they claim. To be clear, again, these are all NVIDIA's numbers. And here is the 1080p data. That other slide was the 1440p. And again, this is scaled price to performance. So that's the A750. They're giving similar numbers on the A770, where this one's the 1440p price to performance for the A770 versus the 3060. And then they had the, this is the performance per dollar for 1440p, and then the other one was for 1080p. So anyway, they're definitely targeting their marketing as a price to performance advantage, which is really interesting to see. They're also including some game bundles as well. I think you can get it bundled with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I think some other various bundles and things are available. And they are also claiming to be very competitive in ray tracing performance against the RTX 3060. So, whereas with the AMD GPUs that beat the RTX 3060 in price to performance and rasterized, it looks like, at least again according to Intel's test data, we obviously need third-party comparisons. According to Intel, it looks like the A770 in many games could be outperforming the RTX 3060 in ray tracing. So interesting. Maybe we'd get actual usable 1080p ray tracing on this card. You know, it has the newer features like the AV1 encoding, things like that. Here's a whole bunch of performance data. I don't know. I'm interested. I'm really glad to see another GPU manufacturer hopping in here. I think that can only be a good thing for competition, driving down prices, things like that. But like I said, you know, as far as should you actually buy one, you do need to think about the driver situation and software. And, you know, maybe it's improved in the last month or two since a lot of people were testing that. We shall see. Now, along with that, they do have Intel's XeSS technology, which is a DLSS competitor. And I've been testing this out on a couple of GPUs, my 6800 XT and my 1060. Looks like Tom's Hardware and PC Gamer have done some testing as well, showing it again on non-Intel GPUs, because unlike DLSS, this does have the DP4A fallback to run on non-Intel GPUs. And it looks like PC Gamer tested out the RTX 2080 Ti. Now, to me, the NVIDIA GPUs that already support DLSS are less interesting to test, although it does show you that, you know, DLSS is offering a better performance gain at similar settings than XeSS on those GPUs, so just confirming that you would use DLSS instead. The Tom's Hardware test is a little more interesting to me in that, first of all, it kind of confirms what I saw in my 1060, which was only very, very small performance gains, if at all, and even on some settings, performance losses. They also got some cards like the 1660 in there. So I think they also got some AMD GPUs as well, and it's looking like on certain GPUs that don't seem to support DP4A very well, you're actually seeing significant performance losses. So basically, if you weren't seeing performance gains, that is well explained by the possible hardware going on in your GPU. So anyway, interesting stuff. I'm just glad we get more options out there. So I think having XeSS out there is a good thing. We're seeing RTX 4090 pricing at Newegg. So it looks like there are multiple models available at the MSRP of $1599, which is a lot of money. And then there are some available for more than $1599, which is, of course, to be expected. But hey, at least none of them seem to be listing at like $3,000 or anything like that. So I guess, you know, it could be worse. Anyway, the absolute high-end GPUs costing an insane amount of money wouldn't bother me so much if they didn't put such a performance gap between the 3080 16GB and the 4090. I wish that gap was a little bit closer like we saw in the 3000 series so that you didn't, have so much pressure to be spending the $1,600 or more if you want the best performance. Because last gen, you could just buy a 3080 and get almost the same performance as a 3090 for significantly less money when, well, according to MSRPs, which never played out. Anyway, in Europe, it's looking like at ProShop, we're also seeing models listed there, and, well, these prices seem a bit higher. But keep in mind, I'm not quite up to date on exactly what the current euro to dollar exchange rate is, but I think the dollar's been strengthening relatively. But then also keep in mind that the prices you see at Newegg, for those of you not in the United States, these do not include sales tax, because in the United States, sales tax is different state by state. Some states don't even have sales tax. So it's not included in the pricing that you see on the website, whereas, in Europe, you're seeing the VAT included on that. So anyway, it's not quite as bad of a difference once you think about that. But AMD, I was looking for if I had any AMD GPU updates for you. Well, not really about the new GPUs coming out, but I did see that their Pro Edition software is boosting OpenGL app performance by up to 72%. It depends on the app. All of my sources will be in the description if you're interested, but it looks like, Maya, Autodesk stuff. Anyway, I'm not into the performance side of the GPUs myself, so I can't tell you too much about how useful all of that is, but it seems like a good thing to boost performance by a lot, so there you go. Leaked AMD desktop CPU roadmap. So basically, the roadmap is showing off what is what is their plan for release dates. So you can see 2022, you can see 2023, you can see Threadripper is looking like it's going to be extended into 2023, but it looks like there could be some announcement of some sort of Threadripper successor coming before 2023 is over, so that's interesting. Now we're seeing the Ryzen 5000 and X3D. We're seeing the Ryzen 7000 series coming in here, before 2022 ended, so this seems accurate. And then we're seeing the X3D to be announced as part of this, and the question is that going to happen before 2023? I don't know, but I'm very interested in the X3D chips, and they're certainly still on here. By the way, this also tells us that this is probably a fairly new roadmap, because notice that the Ryzen 7000 is not listed as to be announced. So this seems like this is after the actual Ryzen 7000 announcement at least, but the X3D is still being listed as to be announced. And here we're seeing the Ryzen 4000G and 5000G, so that's with the better APU graphics built in. Notice this TBA here, and notice that the green bar here continues underneath it. So what this is telling me is that they're going to continue selling the AM4, so 4000G and 5000G APUs through 2023, but towards the end of 2023, it looks like there could be some kind of announcement of an APU to replace that, which I'm guessing would be, based on the newer architecture, and maybe we'll get some newer graphics in there, all of that. So anyway, Google is shutting down Stadia. How's that for a transition? Anyway, so if you were one of the few people who liked Stadia, that's too bad. They are shutting down. If you bought things from the Google Play Store, it looks like some refunds could be available for you, so definitely check in on that. And looks like Stadia just wasn't making the big impact in getting the subscriber counts that they were looking for. And honestly, if the big GPU pricing crisis, when so many people were staying at home and using electronics more than ever, didn't get them the boost in player numbers that they were looking for, I don't know what would. So, because I think that would have been your perfect storm for people to maybe try out streaming services, but who knows. Hey, Raptor Lake PCs will have an ability to wake up when you walk nearby based on just sensing you being nearby. And apparently this is not that you need to be wearing some kind of a sensor. It can just detect disturbances in the Wi-Fi fields or something like that. And then it can also shut down when you go further away. Now, it's unclear whether this would just get then triggered by your cat walking by or something like that. I don't know, and I don't think it's quite up and running and activated yet, but this will be called Wi-Fi proximity sensing, or just Wi-Fi sensing. Seems like an interesting idea that I probably wouldn't use, but there you go. Looks like Returnal's PC version leak is showing NVIDIA DLSS and AMD FSR support. So we've been seeing some leaked screenshots from a PC version of this game, and it is looking like we're seeing both of those upscaling technologies available in that, so interesting. Speaking of other PlayStation 5 games coming to PC, Sackboy: A Big Adventure is now confirmed and has detailed PC system requirements. And they are fairly detailed here, so they're going up from minimum, which is 720p 30 FPS, to recommended at 1080p 30 FPS, being your GTX 1060. And a Radeon RX 580, which are normally competitors, so that seems to make sense. The high settings at 1080p 60 are looking like a GTX 1070 and an RX 5600. The 1070 being here and 1060 being here is telling me that there's some wiggle room here between the medium-high settings and 60 FPS. Like, I don't think the 1060 will only be getting 30. It's just not as stable, it wouldn't be a stable 60 at medium. We're seeing very high settings at 1440p 60 FPS, geez, I can speak, on an NVIDIA RTX 2070 and RX 5700 XT from AMD, and the Ultra settings 4K 60 FPS. Graphics settings custom, that's interesting, NVIDIA RTX 3080 and RX 6800 XT. I'm curious what exactly custom is meaning here. Whether the game, is that kicking on some ray tracing? Are we relying on some upscaling to get 4K 60 FPS here? Who knows? But anyway, the CPU requirements don't seem completely crazy or anything like that, and neither do the memory or OS or anything like that with SSD recommended. And the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 beta had tons of players, hours, and matches in series history. And I'm mostly just bringing up this article to mention, guys, I did do a video testing every GPU that I own. That's most of the AMD 6000 series and NVIDIA 3000 series in the Modern Warfare 2 beta. But the YouTube algorithm hasn't liked that video, probably because it's like 2.5 hours long, because I literally just spliced together a match played testing out every resolution and settings preset in all of those GPUs, but that makes a really long video, so if you watch it for like 7 minutes, that's a really low watch percentage, so YouTube thinks that you didn't like the video when really you probably did, you just wanted to jump to the GPU you were interested in. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying here is you can find that video on my channel. Maybe I can link it up here if I remember or not. I don't know. Anyway, it's just called, I test out all the GPUs in this if you're interested in how they perform against each other and all of that. And I hope all of you have an excellent day.